This video is sponsored by Manscaped. Stay tuned to find out more. There are some artists that I've talked about many times. Throughout my channel, I've dissected their albums, fashion taste, and how they view the world around them through the common ground, music. These artists include Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, Kanye West, Mac Miller, and The Weeknd, to name a few. My aura and sense of the hip-hop scene has always been strong. I've always been the one to let my friends know about an album drop or an upcoming tour. It's one of the few subjects that I truly enjoy submerging myself with. I've always turned to SoundCloud for my favorite mixtapes or up-and-coming artists, but it's the type of platform that, for the most part, is flooded. With the mass availability of music, it can become hard to find songs that actually stand out. Even now, I find myself giving less of a chance to artists, because we simply have so many options. Which is why I passed by the name XXXTentacion a few too many times on the platform. But it was such an obscure name that when it came back, I couldn't help but look more into him. While going through Twitter, I spotted this obscure name once again, this time going off about Drake's mom, a low shot at Drake to get some sort of publicity, which worked. His reasoning was because he thought that Drake stole his flow on KMT, on his album More Life. He tweeted this in March. His official re-release of Look at Me released only a month before on February 20th of 2017, fulfilling the classic tale of all publicity is good publicity, as Look at Me began to exponentially climb in streams shortly after. So I gave it a listen, quickly realizing that this tweet matched this persona quite well. The wet bass, angsty lyrics, and haunting synth was something that I've never heard before. While diving more into his SoundCloud music pre-2017, I quickly developed a sense of XXXTentacion's personality. With Look at Me being accompanied by a mugshot, I decided to dive deeper into the life of X. Born in Parkdale, Florida, Jasse Onfroy, or X, had a very rough childhood. His dad was in prison and his mother would pass him around to those who can take better care of him. In his youth, he would get into various altercations and was kicked out of school. He would find himself committing burglaries, armed robberies, and drive-bys around these years, with no real direction. This is where the direction of music came from, and where he dropped the infamous track Vice City. The instrumental was taken from a free beat on YouTube and sped up. What makes Vice City so important is that it goes past the stories floating around about X and his earlier life documented by others. It's the first time that we see the perspective of his 16-year-old self, and the life he's lived in such a short period of time. We gain a deeper sense of X's perspective throughout his lyricism. He dances around the idea of mortality, concluding that death ain't shit. He'd rather die than put himself throughout this life. We also get a sense of his vocal range in the chorus, and he definitely proves himself as a rapper within each verse. Many people talk about X's infamous style. Although you may not be as fashionable as X, style doesn't always start above the waist, but rather below. No, a bit higher than that. With the help of today's sponsor, Manscaped, you can discover style past your outfit with the Performance Package 4.0. They sent me their Performance Package 4.0 and I honestly love it so far. Inside of this bundle, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is truly a piece of work. It's waterproof, wireless, and has an LED so you can actually see what's going on. The package also includes ear and nose trimmers, ball deodorant, ball toner, and boxer briefs with a travel bag. If you're spending this much on an outfit, do yourself a favor and treat your balls. So support this channel and your balls and get 20% off and free shipping with the code CWM at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Now let's get back to the video. Shortly after this release, he would be imprisoned for gun charges. This youth detention center is where he would meet Ski Mask's Slump God. Once he got out, we saw an influx of projects including the 2015 EP Heartbreak Hotel, Members Only Volume 1 and 2, but most importantly on the last day of 2015, we received Look at Me. 2016 brought an answer to who X really was. Apart from the Tumblr posts, various songs on SoundCloud, and other brief appearances, his character was always presented as mysterious. This silence was broken with his first full-length interview with No Jumper in April of that year. It's where most of the past information listed was discovered in detail. We also discovered the true violence that haunted X's life, which was frequently expressed through his music, like the story of the prison altercation that almost resulted in a man losing his life from X's aggression. After April, the rest of 2016 held various instances of domestic abuse that would go into quite gruesome detail that I'll leave out. He was also arrested for his 2015 robbery charges within this year. His second arrest in October would result in an incarceration until March of the next year, where he was let out on probation. What made this time spent in jail was that whenever he released Vice City, he had next to no fanbase. By now, he's gained quite a bit of traction, had a No Jumper interview, and multiple published projects on SoundCloud. This is also around the time where I discovered him, as stated before, along with the previously stated bad publicity that he brought himself, by throwing shots at Drake. Although I was definitely late to the party, the wrath of X only began on his release of April of 2017. Look at Me peaked on Billboard Top 100, and he really began to make a name for himself. His first official mixtape, Revenge, dropped, which was definitely a highlight in his career, but at the end of the day, it was a mixtape. It didn't come along with structure because it was simply a compilation. Although the one track, I Don't Want to Do This Anymore, was debatably very essential to his career. It was depressive, but it received a great response from his audience, which was rather surprising because tracks like Look at Me, Slipknot, and Rest in Peace Roach were quite literally on the opposite side of the spectrum when it came to this mood. Revenge was followed by Members Only 3, a greater look at the 20 plus members of X and Ski's group known as Members Only. The entire group was very popular, and as they grew, their fans watched their every single move. In reality, at the time, there were no fans like fans of X, which is why he ended up winning the fan-selected spot in XXL's 2017 freshman class. August 25th was the most important date of X's career, the release of his debut project, 17. Every interview, tweet, and news article regarding X's career revolved around this moment. It was now time for him to speak on a full-length LP. This album meant a lot to his career. From going in and out of jail and his ongoing domestic abuse allegations, X was indefinitely the most controversial artist of this time. The cover features letters that he wrote while in prison. The left page states Power Within, which is a collection of thoughts when he dives into his own mind, with points like do not force to remember, this is for mind, talk to Nameen every day, the relief system is your own, you will never be alone again if you don't fool your mind, meditate every day, think passive, perform aggressive, with Nameen being a Kingdom of Hearts character who wields the power to manipulate memories of Sora and those close to him. He clearly is learning the power of the mind, wanting to manipulate how he recalls his past trauma, and changing the way he perceives these memories. While the other notes conclude with, my sanity left me when I was 17. My heart broke beyond repair. When I was 17, I realized the pain is and always be a cycle. There is no end to the pain. You must be numb, useless. Pain, it will never end. Clearly communicating that even with the goal of progression, he will always be stuck in his thoughts. At the age of 17, he realizes how many times he's gone through this cycle of aggression in his lifetime. He collaborated heavily with Shiloh Dynasty, an anonymous singer, to bring us a 22-minute, 11-track project of X that we'd never really seen before. Although I do not remotely support his past actions, it's the first time we get a real taste of remorse, rather than aggression. Raw thoughts from someone deemed as an enemy to the public eye. The album was even co-signed by Kendrick Lamar, stating that listen to this album if you feel anything, raw thoughts, which is what 17 meant. Remorse and looking internally for help, which is what he did while being incarcerated. From here on, it felt like X wanted to change how he affects those around him, especially as an icon to the youth with a cult-like following. He begins to realize the influence that he has on the kids. This is first greatly seen in the Look at Me music video. The second part of the track, Riot, speaks on murder, stating that the youth that is, the ones full of innocence, the ones inspired by things around them, to matter. Further stating, demonstrate care for the youth's future, white or black, black or white. Are you willing to risk your child's future due to your own bigotry? The choice is yours, but your child will not stand for hate. This generation will be loved, nurtured, heard, and understood. Using this highly anticipated music video for a song that oozes anger to communicate a very powerful message about hatred and racism. But by the end of the year, on December 15th, he'd find himself still tied to his old charges, with 7 new charges added, including different degrees of witness tampering and witness harassment. He would be released 5 days later and be put on house arrest for the next 2 months as he awaits trial. While on house arrest, he would be able to go fulfill his contract's obligations to Capitol Records, which was recording a studio album. This album would turn out to be ? He begins the album by saying how much he's grown as a person. His goal with this album was to find the perfect words, to say less but to say more, and to let his energy and mind be felt in a less aggressive way. But a more passive and genius way was the ideal with this album, to show the versatility and to show the open. He wanted us to enter his mind, feeling his insanity, genius, and energy. And that is what we received. An album filled with heartbreak, mortality, and the search for redemption. The album also brings activism to the table, as he highlights the Parkland shooting in the track Hope. On June 18th of 2018, not long after the release of X was shot and killed in an attempted robbery. The end of X's creative vision and what I saw as the end of his career was through the music video Sad. This music video was released 10 days after his passing, which is very eerie when taking in the video. In the video, he visits his old self, with the infamous hairstyle in a casket. His old self wakes up and they begin to fight. The video ultimately symbolizes the transition and maturity to becoming a new person, by shedding his old self. He further explained this in an academics interview.
It's not an image. It was me destroying my previous self. Everyone was attached to this black and yellow hair and this attractive mugshot that made me be perceived as a beautiful person. I destroyed that person and turned into someone else that was perceived as ugly.
The new him included buying houses for family members, participating and hosting various charities, and ultimately going back to school to achieve a degree in arts. Everyone is responsible for their own life and their actions, but when given no support or direction, it's easy to become a product of your environment, because that's all that you have. X's environment was filled with violence and despair. His actions represented a protest for the life that he should have had. Through music, he learned how to express himself further than violence. He ultimately found that direction that wasn't given to him when growing up. I can't help but think his music was a cry for change. It was quite clear that past the headlines, he was looking to better himself before his life was taken. X's legacy is heartbreaking because although on his way to become a better person, he wasn't given his chance due to his untimely death in June of 2018. Like stated before, I don't condone his actions, but for a kid to be murdered at 20 years old is horrific in any situation. I personally think that if X did have a chance, he would be moving towards redemption, as we could clearly see this trend even up to the days leading to his death. But whether you believe in his redemption or not, you can't ignore the mark that he's made on hip-hop. X made waves, and I can confidently say that what he did in merely 2 years and 2 studio albums will not be replicated for many years to come. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think X really made a mark on hip-hop? Also, do you have a favorite track from his discography? Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.